Larry always believed love would find him when the time was right. He wasn't the type to rush into relationships, and after a few failed ones in his younger years, he decided that if he ever settled down, it would be with someone who truly felt meant for him. He was 32 when he met Susan. They met on a rainy afternoon at a small bookstore near his apartment. Larry had been reaching for a novel on the top shelf when another hand touched the same book. He looked over and saw her, dark hair, pale skin, and eyes that seemed deeper than they should have been. She smiled at him, soft and polite, but something about the way she held his gaze made him forget what he was about to say. "You can take it," she said. "No, you grabbed it first," Larry replied, laughing nervously. She tilted her head slightly. "Maybe we can both read it, if you want coffee sometime." That was how it started. 2 years later, Larry was certain Susan was the one. She was kind, thoughtful, and always seemed to understand him better than anyone else ever had. She remembered every small detail about him, his favorite food, the songs he liked as a kid, even dreams he told her once and forgot about himself. Sometimes she could be a little intense. She didn't like when he stayed out late without her, and she hated when he talked about the future without including her in every part of it. But Larry thought that just meant she loved him a lot. So on a cool autumn night, under the yellow glow of streetlights outside their apartment, Larry got down on one knee. "Susan, will you marry me?" For a moment she didn't move. Her eyes locked onto his, wide and shining, almost too bright. Then she smiled slowly. "Yes," she whispered. The wedding happened 3 months later. It was small, just family and a few friends. Susan looked perfect in her dress, and Larry couldn't stop thinking how lucky he was. When they said their vows, Susan held his hands tightly, so tightly it almost hurt. "I promise," she said quietly, her voice trembling, "we will never be apart. Ever." Larry thought it was romantic. The first week of marriage felt normal. They settled into their routine, laughing, cooking together, watching movies late at night. But then things started to feel off. One night, Larry woke up around 3 a.m. for no reason. The room felt cold. He turned over, expecting to see Susan asleep beside him. She wasn't there. He sat up, confused, and that's when he saw her. She was standing at the foot of the bed, completely still, staring at him. Her head was tilted slightly, and she was smiling. Not her normal smile. It was too wide, too stiff. "Susan," he whispered. She didn't answer. She just kept staring. After a few seconds, she blinked and suddenly looked normal again. "Oh, sorry," she said softly. "You were talking in your sleep. I didn't want to wake you." Larry laughed nervously and lay back down. Himself, it was nothing, but it kept happening. He would wake up and find her watching him, standing in the doorway, sitting in the corner of the room, sometimes smiling, sometimes not. One night he woke up and she was leaning over him, her face inches from his. Her eyes looked darker than they should have been. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice shaking. She stared at him for a long moment before answering, "Making sure you're still here." That night, Larry couldn't go back to sleep. Days later, while Susan was out, Larry started looking through some old boxes in the closet, trying to distract himself. He found a folder he had never seen before. Inside were papers. Strange papers. Symbols, drawings, words in a language he didn't understand. One page had a sentence written in English. "The bond must be sealed through marriage. Only then can the soul be taken." Larry's hand started shaking. He heard the front door open. He slowly turned around. Susan was standing there. She wasn't smiling this time. "You weren't supposed to see that," she said quietly. Larry backed away. "Susan, what is this?" She stepped closer, her eyes growing darker, her voice changing into something deeper, something not human. "I waited a long time to come here," she said. "My world only opens once every 100 years. I needed someone to bring back with me. And the rules are very clear. I can only take my husband." Larry felt his heart pounding so hard he thought he would pass out. "You're joking, right?" She smiled again, but this time the smile stretched too far across her face. "I love you, Larry," she whispered. "That's why I chose you." The lights in the room flickered. The walls started to shake. The air felt hot, like the whole apartment was burning without flames. Susan reached out and grabbed his hand. Her grip was impossibly strong. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "but we have to go home." Everything went black. When Larry opened his eyes, he wasn't in the apartment anymore. The sky was red. The ground looked cracked and dry. Strange shapes moved in the distance, screaming sounds echoing through the air. Larry fell to his knees, breathing hard. What is this? Susan stood beside him, completely calm. My world, she said. Larry looked around, panic rising in his chest. I don't belong here. I have to get out. I have to go back. For the first time, Susan's face showed something like sadness. You can't leave, she said. Larry stood up, shaking his head. I'll find a way. I don't care what this place is. I'm not staying here. Susan stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed. I was hoping you wouldn't say that. She raised her hands slowly. A dark glow surrounded her fingers. I do love you, Larry, she whispered. So I'll make this easier for you. The glow spread around his head. His thoughts started slipping away. The red sky faded, the screams disappeared, the ground beneath him changed. Suddenly he was standing in a bright house, sunlight coming through the windows. Susan was in the kitchen, smiling. Good morning, she said happily. Breakfast is ready. Larry blinked, confused. He looked around the house. It felt warm, safe, perfect. He smiled back at her. Morning, honey. He had no memory of the red sky, no memory of the strange world, no memory of what she really was, only the life she put in his head. A perfect life, a happy life, a life where they would be together forever. It was like nothing ever happened to him.